Hi there, Chris from TotallyEV, and here doing a dedicated audio review of the Vauxhall Astra. More specifically, the one on review is the plug-in Hybrid E Ultimate trim. Now, if you want a detailed review of the vehicle itself, do check it up on your pop banner, down the description below, or indeed in the pinned comments. Now, to kick off this video, we have to talk about its configuration, and we don't have any sort of official claims from the manufacturer, although can see from the spec sheet that the GS and the GSE trims have only got a 6-speaker layout. Here, one can only presume that you have got speakers within each of the doors, therefore tallying up to 4, and then drivers found towards the A-pillars. Now, in the model that we have, we've got an 8-speaker layout, and we can definitely affirm over here that you've got speakers found within each of the 4 doors, speakers found towards the A-pillars, then you've also got a center speaker, and finally a subwoofer in the boot, therefore taking the tally up to 8. Now, for you to tinker around with the audio drivers, you'll want to navigate onto the appropriate menu on the 10-inch infotainment system, and here it's actually pretty surprising and refreshing to see a multi-band EQ. Now, in our case, on the Ultimate trim with the 8-speaker layout, we have left the balance to all passengers. We've added 3 notches to treble, 2 notches to mid-range, 1 notch to bass, 1 notch to the center speaker, and also 1 notch to the subwoofer. Of course, this is all very subjective, but we did find it to have a good sort of balance across the frequency range. Now, if you do want to connect up your smartphone and play back your favorite tracks, you'll want to connect over Android Auto or Apple CarPlay, because here they're supported over a wired and wireless format. Of course, you can connect over Bluetooth, but use this sparingly because it's limited to the lowest quality SBC codec. Now, with all that out of the way, we get onto cabin noise, and here the objective numbers will be on your screen. Now, for those who are subscribed, you'll realize that the numbers between 20 and 40 miles an hour are pretty impressive, and that could be in part due to the fact that the model that we have on review, this is the Ultimate trim, has got a soundproofing windscreen. This is also present on the GSE trim, but is not present, nor is it available as an option, on the entry-level GS trim. Now, at 70 miles an hour, however, that windscreen isn't exactly going to give you that much soundproofing because you'll hear a lot more noise coming in from the tires. And unfortunately here, it is a lot louder than some of its competitors. As a result, if soundproofing is very much top of your priority, you might want to either change the tires on the Astra or indeed go for one of the alternatives out there on the market. So with all of that said and done, let's get on to an audio demo. Now, what we'll be doing is placing the camera and microphone in 4 separate locations and playing back a track that is from Priya J titled Like Me. Now, I appreciate an audio demo over YouTube is never ideal, so let me get onto my subjective opinion. Now, first off, in terms of the sub-bass extension, it is certainly there, and in comparison to audio systems that do not have a subwoofer in the boot, well, here the Astra will certainly stand tall. However, it is worth bearing in mind that in comparison to systems that do have a subwoofer, the Astra just doesn't exactly compete. It doesn't provide the lower echelons of those bass tones, nor giving you that sort of rumbly feeling, even if you were to EQ it to your heart's content through the infotainment system. Frankly, over here, it's neither good nor bad. Now, on the flip side, the mid-bass is actually pretty good. Both at the front and at the rear of the cabin, you'll get a hearty response and one that's also pretty controlled and precise too. Now, as for the mid-range, it is unfortunately a little bit recessed and pushed back, although that's no surprise in comparison to some of its competitors, so it's pretty much on par in this department. But thankfully here, you have got the ability to EQ it through the infotainment system, and therefore means that you can actually bring the vocals more to the foreground. Some of its competitors do not offer dedicated mid-range controls, nor have the ability ability to actually be EQ'd because it does take away from the overall accuracy and tonality. Thankfully, that's not the case in the Astra, and therefore Vauxhall should really be commended in this department. As for the highs, they do extend relatively well at the front of the cabin thanks to the inclusion of dedicated tweeters, although the same couldn't be said at the rear because here you have got a lackluster number of drivers and therefore it does take away from that sort of toe tapping feeling. Now my biggest complaint, however, is in terms of its overall soundstage reproduction. See here, you have got good instrument separation thanks to the inclusion of 5 audio drivers at the front of the cabin, but unfortunately you've got a little bit of that unidirectional sound. All the audio seems to be coming from the front rather than the rear, and that's due to the fact that you've only got 2 audio drivers comprised within the rear of the cabin only. As such, it means that rear occupants will also feel that sound is coming only from the front of the cabin and won't feel as involved while listening to their favourite tracks. In a nutshell, what we're trying to say over here is that the audio system that's comprised within the 8-speaker system of the Astra will certainly suffice for certain consumers and will give you a bit of that hearty sort of sound in comparison to stock audio systems. As a result, it gets our Approved Audio Award. But it isn't exactly something that can compete with some other audio systems out there on the market that provide better performance across the sound frequency range, or indeed have a higher number of drivers within the cabin and therefore providing a little bit more of an engaging audio experience. Now, we'd be intrigued to hear what you make of the Astra's audio system down in the comment section below. And of course, if you've liked this independent detailed review, definitely do consider dropping a like, subscribing and hitting that bell notification, all of which would be greatly appreciated. As such, I've been Chris from TotallyEV, and I'll hopefully see you in the next one. Take care of yourselves, and goodbye.